Welcome to the season finale of season 4 of Whole Lot of Wolves. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I am Paul LePage.
We've got Alex producing for us again tonight,
Hey guys.
and Danny Paletti on the socials.
Yellow.
And with this being the last episode of the season, we're bringing in the big round table of guests again. We got Adam Cohen.
Hey guys.
We got Brian Donnelly from Charlotte Wolves.
Hey y'all.
Chris Fisher down in Miami.
What's going on, everybody? I invited two other guests as well.
We have our great chairman, she on the screen. David Copey from New York Wolves.
Hi, everyone.
And in his car on the way to his home in New England, it's Ryan Gray.
Hi everybody.
Well, guys, the rough end to the season continued and ended on Sunday with a 2-0 loss to Liverpool. It was a little disappointing because the lineup was pretty strong, 5 in the back. Sandy Bueno came in. It allowed Semedo to go to right back, right wing back. Bella Guardian of the Galaxy got the start with Cunha and Huang up top. But Paul didn't exactly match. The intensity didn't match the lineup.
I think it was to be expected. The swan song for Klopp and at home, Liverpool last game of the season. Tough place to go regardless, but you add all of that into the mix, and I think they were always up against it.
The pressure started pretty early, but, Jose Sa had a great game. He stopped a great breakaway goal in the 17th minute, and Cunha fed Huang. Great shot that was tipped by Allison just barely. So that seemed to be the game plan, Paul. Just counterattack.
I think the commentary team on our feed said that they were trying to copy the Crystal Palace playbook from a few weeks ago, which was similar. But that was probably, we're soaking up a lot of pressure, but I thought that was probably the clearest cut chance of the game up to that point. Is a really good save. And even better was when he tipped it around the post, it deflected and then smacked one of their stewards in the face. So that was quite funny.
Well, and it seemed fitting. I think we all, if we had asked everybody on this round table, would VAR have screwed us over one last time this season? The answer probably would have been yes. And it was fitting considering Wolves made a proposal to scrap VAR this week. But Nelson Semedo, he made a challenge on McAllister. Yellow at first, but then they looked at it, straight red. What do you think, Danny? Good call, bad call?
Yeah, well, first of all, a lot of people saw it as, retribution for Jeff Shee submitting that resolution. I saw it as them seeing it, if it's successful, which we all sort of don't think it will be, then they've got to get us one last time, surely. They can't let it go and not have some VAR controversy. No, but the red card is a perfectly fine call. I just wish that it had been made initially. I personally think that it's a very soft red card. From the reverse angle that they kept showing, it looks like studs on ankle or maybe even higher up, but from the sideline, it looked much more like studs on the top of the boot, which to me is much more just clumsy, and especially with the speed that it happened, just felt like, it looks so much worse, slowed down. And so it's more just the frustration of the process once again. So I think reasonable people can disagree whether it's a yellow or a red, but the process leaves us feeling extremely salty.
It was a classic case for me of having the game re-refereed. That, to your point, Danny, in real time, those tackles can frequently happen. He was really definitive in his positioning. The ref was. He was in front of it. He saw exactly what was happened, and it was a yellow. But likewise, if it is seen something with more intent and he'd given a straight red, you'd probably thought, oh, that's tough. But when they would have played back the tape, you'd have seen, well, I've seen him given for that. But that's what gets me again. In this case, it's so subjective. It's him giving a clear decision on the field that they weren't immediately surrounding him saying, it should be overturned or anything like that, then it goes to someone else to redirect it. And as you say, like all the different frames through that you can make that tackle look 100 times worse or 100 times less. And both players as well. I saw one still earlier today, and both of them were in the air at the same time. And it was just that fraction of a second difference that made it a foul in Semedo's case. And guess what? If it had been the other way around, do you think that red would have happened? I don't think so.
Dave?
Yeah, and everything you just said, I'm glad you pointed that out. When you look at it in slow motion, I'm sorry, if VAR is going to be effective in that game, it upholds the yellow for Semedo and gives a red card to Alexis McAllister, who dived in with 2 feet, who was jeopardizing an opponent 1,000 times more than Semedo was. So that's the frustration with VAR, is it looked at an incident and came out with a completely wrong decision.
Raise of hands. Did anybody think that you were okay with the call with VAR turning into a red? Nope, not a single one of us. All right, that's what I thought. Well, then 6 minutes later, you knew it was bound to happen. Liverpool smelt blood. McAllister scored with a nice cross over our 3 center backs. That was a pretty poor one to concede, wasn't it, Alex?
Yeah, it was. And on the broadcast, I think Jim Beglin called out Ryan Aït-Nouri for not closing down. But I think that's a little bit harsh on Aït-Nouri to a degree, but it was really poor defending all around. And if you go back and you watch it, Cody Gakpo, who's the tallest of the players in the box, would have had a free header had the cross not gone slightly above him. Alexis McAllister, who's in front of Santi Bueno, does end up getting a free header. And then, John Richter Bellegarde is our right wing back at that point, and at the far post is Luis Diaz. Like, literally, I feel like Harvey Elliott could have just picked a single player, and if he crosses it 3 times, he could have each of them score 3 different times. So it's hard to get mad about these things now that we're looking forward to the summer. But that, when you watch that back, that is not the intensity you would expect a team that is, trying to go out on a high note to be defending with, certainly. So,
and then Paul, it felt like the game was over when they got a second one. Kind of little panic there in the box, and João Gomez ended up getting in a little tussle and knocked it in himself. Did you have any hope for a comeback after that?
No, and I was expecting just. Luckily, it didn't happen, but I was expecting the floodgates to open. So it was a relief that they certainly saw it through to half time at that point.
Dave?
Yeah, just to add to that, the same Alexis McAllister that we were just talking about getting a red card a few minutes earlier scored the first, in true John McGinley fashion. And then when you're talking about studs up challenges, did anyone notice that Kwanzaa went in studs up on Gomez on the goal line? So surely that should have been a red as well. But I'm just a bitter and twisted anti-VIR.
Well, and then there were a lot of problems that I had with the broadcast. All right. Martin Tyler, he's the worst. I'm sorry. I know Brits like him. He's awful. The best decision FIFA ever made was taking him off as the primary play-by-play on that game. But while they had a nice close-up of Tony Gomez, there was a lot of action going on in the box. And there was a penalty claim by Cunha, perhaps fouled by Virgil van Dijk. Paul, would that have been given to Liverpool?
Yeah, of course. I think I'm actually surprised it wasn't. But no. What I am surprised is that the ref would have given it, and then he would have come back to spot that foul in speech bubbles that made him go back to the halfway line and see that he'd gone down. I forget who's gone down in the build up to that play. So I'm generally surprised that we didn't get it given and then overturned based on Cunha fouling someone again.
I feel like we would be remiss not to just mention there being issues with camera angles and things at Anfield again. Like the conspiracy theorist in me is like they were almost preventing the situation where we would score or something, like something very controversial with VAR would have happened, and they would have just said like, oh, we don't have an angle of it, and the fact that we couldn't even broadcast it to the world that's watching this game is the truth there. Like, what was that? The camera guys are now on the beach in the final match day of the season, just like sitting there staring at Klopp, wondering what he's doing. And they forgot to cut to the actual action. It's unbelievable. Come on.
Dave.
I'm glad you mentioned that. It never even occurred to it, the irony, right? And I just wanted to mention when that whole thing happened in the FA Cup, I was actually 95% through setting up a spoof Twitter account called ITV Cameraman. And I was just going to take a series of just utterly crap pictures and post them as this incompetent ITV cameraman that couldn't even spot a blatant nod offside. But you just reminded me of that. I never did because it was going to be too much work, but it would have been funny.
And like you said, I feel like after Wolves had made the proposal to scrap VAR, like that just puts the spotlight. Little backstory. At one point in one of my jobs, I made a complaint against the senior HR manager. While I was correct at the time, didn't work out in the long run, guys. So I kind of feel like, don't be that guy. There's always retaliation, even when they say there's not. So second half, more the same. Saul really kept the team in it. There was a great break by Cunha, who played Aït-Nouri in, but they couldn't get one down. Danny, that was a disappointing miss.
Yeah, I feel like it must have been one of those where Cunha was just surprised that Aït-Nouri made the logical pass. That's what I thought in the moment. I was like, he's just going to shoot. This is what he does. Like, he always kind of stutters and tries to cut back and then shoot on his left. And I was surprised that he slid it over to Cunha, and I can only imagine that Cunha was also surprised because I expect better of him, and I'm sure he'll want that one back because I was starting to see an unlikely comeback when that slid over to him, but it wasn't to be.
I was expecting us to score a goal and then give up a third immediately because that seems to be the MO the last few weeks. Just give us a little bit of hope. And then Alex, Pedro Neto came in for a cameo. He looked sharp. He even had led to a buildup which Doherty scored, but heaven forbid his shoulder was offside, so that was ruled out. But still, nice to see him out there, right? Although, is it for the last time?
Yeah, good to see him. I can't believe I'm going to say this as far as whether or not it's the last time. I hope so. Didn't really think I'd be saying that, but this does dovetail well into a no stupid question that we got, where Dallas Wolves chimed in and asked, who do we think sells for more, Ryan Aït-Nouri or Pedro Neto? And then just today, for some context as we record this, John Percy of the Telegraph reporting that there is a £60 million figure attached to Pedro Neto with Manchester City circling. So I guess if we're doing the first part of his question, Aït-Nouri or Neto.
We need to clarify with Aït-Nouri. Remember, there is a 50% sell-on clause that can be bought out for 10 million. It's either pounds or euros. I don't know. So essentially, whatever the price tag you're going to get for Aït-Nouri, you have to subtract 10 million off, and that's what it's going to be. Adam?
Yeah, I would say Aït-Nouri probably is the higher price tag at this point.
Interesting.
He's, I think, one of the best left backs in the league. I don't know who really comes close to all his versatility, what he was able to do this season, playing also as a 9, playing as a left back, playing on the left wing. Highly versatile, scored some good goals, has done well as a defender as well, keeping some of the best attacking threats quiet. He did it seasons ago with Salah, kept Salah quiet in that other game. So, and I think with Neto's injury, as much as I love Pedro Neto and my username is nothing but Neto, I just think that with his injuries, it's going to be a lot harder for teams to come in and offer the 70, 80 million that I think Aït-Nouri, could get depending on how the market looks this summer.
70 or 80 for Aït-Nouri. Wow. So even you subtract the 10, that's still a great price. Brian?
70 or 80 does sound. I really like Aït-Nouri, but 70 or 80 would definitely open the.
That's what I was like.
I think they want to get the bags back.
Everyone has a price.
I would still think that Neto would go for more purely because he is a pure attacker, and those guys always go for more. Even the best defenders still seem to have a cap on that value. I think overall, the summer is going to be really strange with kind of how what PSR has actually been implemented and with potential rules changes impacting this what people can and can't spend. I think it could make it really, we're not going to see quite the same checks getting written as they would in the past. But I think for someone that has shown that extreme hot upside, a big club will always come in for someone with that level of upside because they'll always say, well, we can keep him healthy. And even if we don't, we'll only pay him 20 games this season anyway. And then you get the best 20 games. Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, I'd probably say Neto still go for more than Aït-Nouri.
Chris?
I really liked how when Pedro checked into the game, we got a glimpse of what he's capable of on that run. And I think that just shows to other teams, even after the hamstring injury, that, what he's still capable of. And it kind of still whets their palate and entices them to pony up the dough. I mean, I'd love to see a bidding war over the 60 million. I think 55 is probably where he'd cap out at, but I don't think Ryan Aït-Nouri is as fantastic and as he's been able to move all over the pitch this season and just been a plug and play kind of guy. I can't see him commanding more than Pedro, honestly.
I get a feeling, though, that Fosun hasn't shown that they're very good at negotiating, both on sellings and incomings. Danny, do you kind of get that feeling as well? In which case, I'm actually going to be surprised if they get 60 for Neto.
No, I mean, I take your point. I think that it's hard to look past some of the past deals, especially incomings, where I feel like we overpaid. But I discount that as being a sort of George Mendes effect in a lot of cases. I think that the thing I struggle with this summer for Neto is what are the teams that are actually buying? Because we already just saw January where there's been so little business. If there's like kind of a quote unquote normal amount of business over the summer, I think Neto easily goes for 60. I don't think it's going to be that tough to move him for the reasons that Brian said that, I think that a bigger club that can rotate him more effectively are not going to worry too much about his injuries. It's going to be fine. But every team, especially in our sort of bracket of the Premier League, are going to be trying to move these players in order to reinvest and rebuild their squads, I know that Crystal Palace don't want to lose Eze or Elise, but they might feel like they have to. Same thing with people at West Ham. Same thing with people at Fulham, needing to move players on. And where are all these players going to go? The top four teams can't buy, 16 different players in order to fund all these mid-table rebuilds. So that's the one thing that worries me about Neto moving on. I think Neto is sort of the easiest one to move on, but what that means, I'm not exactly sure.
Adam?
I think it's fair for you to be worried about our ability to buy or sell at a good price, but I think those bad negotiations were pre-Hobbs, and I think Hobbs has shown since he's taken over that he's a pretty excellent negotiator. The Tommy Doyle deal for 4.3 mil, I think is what it was, is
deal.
An excellent deal. I thought the Bellegarde deal was very good, getting Santi Bueno for, I think, 8.5, maybe 10. I think while the summer wasn't as good as we wanted to be, there were excellent deals negotiated. And I do think the benefit of Neto being a Mendes client is that it's in Mendes's best interest to get a high price in order for his fee to be higher. And so I think he'll be able to commend that. I do think also that while Premier League top teams might be, it might be difficult to get them to buy our players. PSG is going to be looking for new players, and I could easily see him going to PSG for the 60 mil or more. So I think there's buyers out there. I think Pedro Neto is an excellent player. He would add anything to any team. He's just a really good left winger who can also play on the right. So there's value there. I think we'll get it.
Brian?
You're saying where are all these guys going to get sent to? you're just forgetting about Chelsea. They must have another room they could put everybody in.
At some point, FFP Grim Reaper has to come knocking on their door.
Just like, yeah, you have 50 people.
Dave?
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Neto, isn't it? It's good that he came back and got over his injury. That puts us in a little bit of a better position. But I think your point, Adam, about Mendes is really important because some Mendes shenanigans would definitely help us, and it's obviously in his interest to do that. So I'm glad they put a 60 million price tag on him. Will we get 60 million cash? Probably not. But if we can get some sort of combination of, a decent amount of cash and a player a la Tommy Doyle, I think that's probably the best we can expect. But interesting point from Brian about PSG and some of the other teams that just have money to throw around. But I think Neto is probably, if one of them goes, I think he's probably going to get more than Aït-Nouri, even though Aït-Nouri has obviously been a lot more injury free.
Mm-hmm. Ryan?
I think also with obviously with Neves being in Saudi Arabia as well, I wouldn't discount that with plenty of money floating around there. They're reported to have billions in like a kitty this year to go and buy whoever they want. So I wouldn't discount any of them going off to Saudi Arabia, and that's where you can kind of cash in a little bit more, right? They're going to end up paying more than what he's actually worth. So especially with Neves being out there as well, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up, or some players end up over there.
Yeah, Mendes has got his grubby little mitts in the sun, surely.
And this is why I'm not real worried about stuff, because if they sell Neto for 60 million that they want, guys, that's like 3 or 4 players based on how Wolves are going to do business from now on. We ain't buying any more $40 million players unless it's like something weird like Cunha. It's, we'll get the depth. We just need to sell one guy. So, Paul, that was kind of the end of the road after that for the game. Finished 14th. Overall, what are your thoughts?
Snap your hand off. The start the season after everything that we went through. If you'd have given me that, I'd have taken it every day. It's just, you've got that immediacy feel, and the highs are the highs where we were. And if we could have kicked on and added depth to the squad and having a striker to play against Coventry, who knows? But I think when you break it all down, you've just got to be thankful of the season that we've had. And if you do try as much as possible and put a positive spin on it and back O'Neill and give him the summer, see what he can do. Hopefully all of the pieces fall into place so they can make some moves, bulk up that squad, get some of his players in, then the future could be pretty rosy. I think it's just how it's gone so flat so quick that leaves that sour taste.
Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I think you couldn't have said it much better, but it was a season very much of the what could have been. And this is the trap of supporting a non-Big Six team, is that we'll never have 38 consistent games. It will never happen. We'll always have ebbs and we'll always have flows. But I was looking this up this morning, and between when we beat Man City to the loss of Coventry, we played at a 64-point pace, which would be good enough for sixth. And that also does not count for the many times where we got screwed in the middle of various VARs situations that could have tacked onto that tally. And just to be, there was going to come back to earth. But yeah, the kind of damp squid ending is very much it's a bummer. But to your point, kind of going from where we started to where we ended, if you could just close your eyes after match week 1 and then open them again at match week 38 and say, oh yeah, 14th, 46 points. Yeah, sounds good. But the fact that there was such a really good run, a long run too in the middle that was quite excellent, made it feel like it was going to be special. And then to have it just kind of peter out like that was a bit of a bummer.
Yeah, I don't want to sound spoiled, but I'm very disappointed. I think with, we had the bad summer. and we dealt with that, and we had the first few games where we got robbed, which we always do, and we made it through that, and then we had that excellent period where we were doing the doubles over all these teams, beating Man City. We looked incredible. We were high flying. We were pressing. We just looked like an incredible team. We looked like what we always thought we should look like. And Gary O'Neill had us playing great. And then it just falls apart. And it just, I don't know. Yeah, maybe in the summer, if you said, hey, you're going to finish 14th, are you okay with that? I would have said, sure. But after seeing the style of gameplay totally change with the injuries and just, I don't know if it's change in tactics or they were overworked or, even the players that you would normally expect to give their top, like João Gomez, and Lamina, they just kind of lost their spark. Not that João Gomez hasn't been great, and I think he's still been the best player we've had in the last 10 weeks, but the same excitement that he had earlier on when O'Neill had him singing, it's just gone. So I'm disappointed. I think to get passed by Fulham on the last day, to get passed by Crystal Palace after their horrible season, and to get passed by Fulham with the scores of Adama Traore and Raul Jimenez. Come on,
and 2 assists from Adama. Yeah, don't forget the 2.
How Adama can't score a goal. How is he scoring goals? Like on the last day? Come on, man. It just stung. It just really, really stung. And I was not happy with 14th. We should have finished 11th, 10th, realistically.
Chris? Yeah, I agree with everybody else. After the Coventry loss, the final 10 games of the season, the only win came against Luton, and then the 2 draws that we had were against teams that were in the relegation battle. So we technically played relegation football. I mean, we lost 7 of the last 10. And if anything, these 2 guys beside me should have taken notice of the fanfare that the club was garnering behind Gary O'Neill, thinking, hey, these guys actually did something smart and made the right decision in bringing him in and didn't listen to us. Maybe they know what the hell they're doing. And then once again, it feels like they're, moving the goalposts on us going into a summer when they could have looked at it as we've got a manager who could potentially put us in Europe, which means more money in our account. Instead, they're like, no, we're going to put the handbrake on and we're going to be very careful on how we go about our spending and how we go about this whole project. But I think this shows that you have an opportunity here under a young manager with some enthusiasm and some players to add some depth, maybe sell a player. I'm not saying they're not going to. Maybe sell one player, keep the culture and the system intact, and then move forward with it and challenge for Europe. But it just doesn't seem like that. It seems like the same song and dance as last summer. And I think as dejecting as those last 10 games are, knowing the way that Fosun have operated with the club over the past couple summers, it's even more dejecting going into this summer, despite the efforts of Gary O'Neill and what the club did the first half of the year.
Yeah, I think it is definitely a mixture of ups and downs, right? I mean, I think we're all a little disappointed the way it ended, but if in those couple of days after Lopetegui had left and before O'Neill was appointed, and we were all going, if you'd said, oh, by the way, we're going to be without 5 strikers, Silva, Sasha, Hwang, Cunha, Neto for a decent chunk of the season, and we're going to lose potentially up to 12 points through VAR, where do you think we'd finish? I think everyone would have said, oh, crap, we're going down, probably bottom. So to actually finish at 14th in spite of all of that, crazy glass half full guy here. But I think it is, we've got to be thankful that we did make it through this crazy season. But that point of Adama suddenly pulling up 5 years worth of assists and goals in 60 minutes, and then Raul getting to move Fulham above us. I mean, I was jokingly calling them Wolverhampton at the beginning of the season because they nicked those 2, but just the irony is pretty palpable, right?
Alex, are they still lowly Fulham?
I guess I can't put it this way. I'm never going to say that again. All right. I'm very annoyed by that, but Chris's point, I think, elicited a lot of emotion in me, and I think Adam got to it a little bit as well. And I do feel very similar to both of them in that, and maybe we're like tipping our hands as Americans who jumped aboard this, weren't born into this, who didn't go through some of the dark days that others on this have. But, part of it for me is like, yes, I'm happy they didn't get relegated and that they weren't in a relegation battle all of the season, but to continually every year just sit here and like finish. I'm not saying they finished in the bottom half every time. Don't forget we had a European run, but finish like towards the bottom of the table and then just consider ourselves lucky is almost like it's the antithesis of like what my view on sports is. Like to just be satisfied with no progress is silly. And maybe that's just something I'm going to need to get used to. But I also think the goalposts moving and Fosun selling us a project is the reason it's disappointing. Like if we were a middling team that were just, there are teams like that are just happy to be there every year. But when Wolves came up and then they go to Europe and then we're told by Fosun we're going to be the next Man City, that's the reason. Like if you're good, if that's well, yeah, I know, and they shouldn't live that down. But like if that's what you're saying and the way you're operating is like this super, just kind of like mid to bottom half of the table organization, then yeah, that is going to be annoying. Like of course it is. I don't know. Expectations versus reality, I guess. Maybe I just need to adjust mine.
Sports fans get pretty used to it. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. The Hornets have been good once in 30 years. Everyone still goes. Happens. I was going to say, Stu watches Jets games. It's not that different, I suppose.
In the middle of the night, no less.
Yeah. Ryan?
Yeah, the thing that I keep thinking back to is a few years, well, probably you're looking at probably like 12, 15 years ago now when Charlton were in the Premier League. And Charlton would finish mid-table every season. They did it for like 10 years. They had Alan Kirbishley in charge, and they were bored finishing mid-table every single season. Then they fire Kirbishley. They get relegated. They're stuck in League One. They're stuck in the Championship. They can't get out, and they've never been back since then. I see all the stuff online. I see all the stuff for the people that we're content kind of being where we are, but we're in the Premier League and we kind of have to temper our expectations. This is part of being a Wolves fan. Like some years we're going to have decent years and some years we're going to finish 14th and be a little bit disappointed. But if we get too like annoyed with it, then it can change really quickly. And you look at all those clubs that go away and never come back. You look at Portsmouth that are starting to come back now, back in the Premier League, in the Championship. Like we've just got to be careful that we don't become one of those clubs and want too much too quick, and then it goes horribly wrong.
Dave?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a perfect summary, Ryan. I mean, I think great point, Alex, that they sold us on this big vision. And you know what? I don't think it was a vision. I think we absolutely we finished seventh twice. We did the double over Man City. And I think the reality changed. And I don't think they've ever really come clean and said, the Chinese government said stop pouring money into European football clubs. I think that has been a big part of it. But to me, on that topic, to be honest, the shocking stat that I heard all this season was that Crystal Palace have been in the Premier League for 12 straight years. Mm-hmm. They've not been signing Erling Haalands and spending 50 million on players, to my recollection. They've just been muddling along, scaring the crap out of the fans a few seasons, but they've managed to stay up for 12 years without really spending tons of money, as far as I remember. So, yeah, it's different to the visions Fosun sold us when we first came up. But to your point, Ryan, if you could guarantee 14th-ish for the next 12 years, I'd bite your hand off. That's unfortunately the reality of the Premier League at this point.
I just ultimately feel, remember, we're owned by a financial corporation. And yes, China has a little bit to do with this situation, but they're looking at this straight up as an investment. If we can continue to stay, to Dave's point and everybody's point pretty much, if we continue to stay in the league, that just means money coming in every year. And they're in the positive, they're in the black. They're not finishing in the red. But, at times it's felt over the last 2 years, especially, like it's being run more like a corporation than more like a sports team or a club. And the ambition hasn't really been there. And I think ultimately maybe that is the American in me that it doesn't allow the fans the chance to dream too often, except for a couple of years ago when we were finished top half of the table and making runs at Europe. And when we obviously, moving up through the levels. But right now it just feels like a point. Yes, we want to sustain in the Premier League. I think Fosun is looking at it as cha-ching, cha-ching annually, but I would love for them to be a little more ambitious, just a tad more.
Ryan, I'm gonna have you close out this part, and then we're gonna move on.
Yeah, I just think when Fosun came in, they were very and they said all that crazy stuff when they came in. They're just very naive, right? And they'd never owned a football club before. They'd never done anything like this before, and obviously they've had to backtrack on everything that they've said, which is again that someone said it earlier. They're never going to live it down, and they came in thinking we were going to be the new Man City, and everybody could see that we were never going to be the new Man City. Yeah, they're just coming with that naivety and like we just said about having the weights being ran like a corporation. That's what their speciality is, right? Is running big corporations like that and not necessarily football clubs. But I think with Hobbs coming in and having more of a football structure to it, I think being a Wolves fan and being a club that's middle to lower table, we get our chance every 4 or 5 years, and we have to take it with both hands when we get it. And it's not going to happen every year. Like, we were incredibly lucky finishing 7 2 years in a row, but like that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen all the time. And like you said, with Crystal Palace being in the league for 12 years, they've not been in Europe once in that 12 years. We have since we've been back in, and we will probably. I would say I'd bet quite a bit of money that in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years that we might be in a European competition again. But I'm okay being a Wolves fan, having a good season every 3 or 4 seasons, because that's just how it is.
I view a successful season of, am I excited on Saturday morning when I wake up to watch Wolves play? And with the exception of probably the last 6 games when everybody was very clearly beat up and tired, it was an exciting season. There was a lot of great moments that we had, a lot of exciting moments, and we beat West Brom on the road. So fuck them.
Here, here.
No Stupid Questions is presented by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. So whether you're celebrating a Wolves victory or winding down after a day at work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of California's wine country with every sip. For a limited time, head to esfuerzowines.com and use the promo code WOLVES for a 15% discount on your wine purchases. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their products responsibly and in moderation.
We'll go to Joe Springer's email. He emailed us hello@wholelotofwolves.com is our email address. And he asks, now that the season is over and we sail into the summer sunset, it's time to reflect. If this Wolves team were a boat, what kind of boat would it be? And what would the name of the boat be? I made the obvious Titanic joke in that things were going really well until, until the Coventry match. And that was our iceberg. And then we just completely fell apart at the seams. But what kind of boat and what would the name of it be? It's a fun cruise for a while.
I feel it's like one of those little rowboats where you're going, wow, you're going a lot faster than you thought. Yeah, things are looking good. And then you hit a sharp piece of coral and suddenly there's water coming in and you got like a little bucket and you're trying to throw it out and you can't. And then you're going down and here comes the sharks to come and get you. So yeah, the SSS whoopsie. Dave?
I'm going to go for Poseidon. Remember that film, The Poseidon Adventure? Sailing along, everybody's happy. All of a sudden, the damn thing
upside
flips
down.
upside down. There's a ton of drama, but in the end, most people survive. To me, that's Wolves.
It was like 5 people out of that whole cruise ship that survived.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. Maybe that's a little sadder than I remember
it. Chris?
here in Florida, we always seemingly name boats after our significant others. So this is an ode to everybody who predicted that they would go down this year. The name of the boat would be Misdiagnosis. And I'm gonna go with, I think the Wolves would be like a party barge, a pontoon boat. Like it's all a real fun time and everything's going great, and then all of a sudden the damn prop falls off and you're rudderless, and now everybody's drunk, and it's just, yeah, no, and they're all sunburned to hell. So I think that's the way the season ended. It was just a mess, and but yeah, they'd be a pontoon boat.
And then here come the cops on the boat,
Yeah.
dressed as VAR.
They're not ready for the open water to run with the big boys and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they're a good time nonetheless.
All right, let's move on to another no stupid question, also emailed in from Drew in Pittsburgh. He wants to know, what would you consider to be the best case scenario for this summer, and what would be the worst case scenario for this summer? It sounds like there was a consensus on Neto's future, so maybe we don't need to hit on that too much. But with that already kind of, seeming like a possible reality, where do we go from there? What's the best case?
Keep Gary O'Neill.
Best case is they're actually got their shit together for once, which I think the Tommy Doyle news indicates they may have that down, and even to the extent of actually Gary O'Neill talking about Che Adams on Sunday indicates again that it's not a megastar, it's not a wonder signing, but it's a body that could make a difference. So I'm going to say that a good summer will be that they've got a plan and they're going to execute on it.
I think a good summer is they can offload some of the dead weight, actually get a decent fee in for Gonzalo,
Fabio,
actually get a good fee in for Fabio, and then so that way they can kind of build around without losing any core folks. And if you sell Neto for a big fee and then augment with some of these other dead weight folks that are on big wages, a la Gonzalo Guedes, and then replenish with some really smart signings, like, as we all knew, João Gomez was going to be a smart signing, and he has proved to be. You can get another couple guys that are in that, 10 to 15 who are either young and up and coming or are just solid depth professionals. Get your Johnny back from when Johnny was awesome type of guy. Trying to think of a good example. Like I saw Josh Brownhill's coming off contract. It's like that kind of guy who's like, you're not a superstar, but you are a very solid professional rotational guy, so that when we need someone to fill in for 4 games, you're it, and you're not going to make a mess of it.
Yeah. So first, let me lay out the worst case scenario. Let's be simple. Worst case scenario is Neto gets called up for Portugal. He goes to training, pulls his hamstring again. He's out for another 8 months. So that's worst case scenario.
Don't you put that you on me, Ricky Bobby.
Let's just remember that it can always be worse than it seems. But I'll say, to me, the best case scenario is that, say, Neto goes, and then as folks have mentioned, as Brian just said, some of the people out in loan also go. I think there's actually decent value there. I know it seems very impossible to offload someone like Fabio Silva, but I think a deal can be made with the right buyer. And I think there's other players also that we can move on for like little bits of fees here and there. That money, along with what we expect to get from Neto, is enough to give us what I think we probably need for next year, which is to increase the squad size overall by around 4 to 5 players. And that obviously means replacing anybody who leaves, who's been in the first team. And of those, let's say 5 players, I think around 2 to 3 should be like honest to God starters. So like we're talking $15 to $20 million outlay for someone from Europe who's young and decent, who's going to make an impact in the first team. And then the remaining spots are filled by rotational squad depth. That, even though it might be a little bit boring, is actually kind of my ideal summer, because I'd like to see us, operate a little more streamlined and not take so many risks. So fill out the starting 11, so you have around like 14 like first team players, basically your 11 plus your subs, give or take. and then have a few more people around who don't expect to necessarily be playing week in, week out, but who are young and hungry and want to make a difference. That would be great. And I'm ready to have my heart broken.
Yeah, I don't want any more of this going and having to convince a guy 3 times to come join us for $50 million. I'm done with those days. Adam?
Best case scenario is we find out Craig Dawson has a love child that already plays in the championship and has all the experience, and he decides to join on a free. Yeah, I think everyone's kind of covered it. Like, best case would probably be selling Neto, selling some of the loanies, bringing back some of the loanies that we think will be good, like hopefully Chiquinho, though remains to be seen if he can continue his form that he had before he got injured. Bring back Yerson and hope that he can also bring that level of quality that he had with La Liga and MLS, and then fill out the squad with some frees and some astute signings. I think everybody would be happy with that, even if Che Adams is one of those signings who doesn't get me excited, but would be excellent for us.
He's a free. He's on a free.
Yeah. Fills the gap. He can score in the Prem. He has had a decent season in the Championship, though I think he hasn't played as much as maybe he would have thought. So that would be ideal. I do think that we will see another summer of sales. I wouldn't be surprised to see Semedo go. Now that Gary's been talking about it every week, I want to hold on to Semedo. Well, we haven't heard any rumors of Semedo going anywhere, so why are you saying this, Gary? So I think we'll see Semedo go. I think we'll see Sa potentially go, which I would hate to see, even though he has his usual mistake in him. He's the second best shot stopper in the league. And while he can't play with his feet, you're not going to find a good goalie who could play with their feet who wants to play for Wolves, right? Like, if that goalie exists, he plays for the top 4 or in Europe at a minimum. He doesn't join the 14th team in the Prem, unless we decide to give him crazy wages, which we won't do.
Or he's 12. Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the details everybody said, I totally agree with all of that. I think I would look at it a little bit differently at a higher level and say the best case scenario is that the signs that we've actually got our shit together in how to manage the squad and business for the club is actually true, just like it was when Fosun first came in, when we had Kevin Thelwell and Laurie Dalrymple, who, we got rid of some players like Barry Douglas. We were all shocked at that. But guess what? In came Johnny, who was a big upgrade. So I'm hoping that, we've actually figured out again how to properly manage the squad, and lose some people that we might not want to, but do it on our terms and get money for them with proper replacements lined up. There's always going to be changes in the squad, so that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is we don't, we sell a critical player like Neto and bring in a total dud to replace him, or something like we can't offload Silva because he's kind of shown that he's not exactly a great prospect.
Douchebag.
He was doing well in Scotland until all of a sudden he wasn't. And we're stuck with players that Gary was very clear he don't want to be here and don't want to play for us. So,
I want to address that. The fact that O'Neill said, I only want players who want to be at Wolves. Bravo.
Mm-hmm.
That's the attitude we need to have. Get these guys out of here that don't. And then I love João Gomez sent out a tweet today that said, I love Wolves. I want to be at Wolves. Yes. That's what I want. I want that's what makes the team fun. And it was these guys like Lamina and Gomez this year and Cunha that really wanted to be here. Chris?
Mm-hmm.
I know we all talked about Pedro, but a signing, I would like to see him return because he's got a couple of years left on the contract. I'd rather them move on from Maximilian Kilman. Even though he's captain and I know he's growing into it and he's been scouted by Southgate. I think there's a price out there for him, and considering what they could get back in return money-wise, financially on the books would be immensely beneficial. He didn't do enough on the offensive end for me this year in attacking in the box, And I'd love to bring in Yerson Mosquera to see what he can do. And to Adam's point, I would like to bring back Craig Dawson, even though he's lost a couple of steps, just to help train Yerson. So you put Santi in the back, and then you've got Mosquera, and Dawson coming off the bench. I don't think that's a bad idea, considering he lives pretty local. That's a nice little move there. He'll probably take a club discount. But if they do move on from Semedo, are we looking at a Kajana Hover and Dexter Lampagita right
Now,
back
Dexter.
situation? I like Dexter. I don't
I
know
like
about
Dexter.
Hover.
No, I don't want anything to do with the back.
Yeah,
end.
no. So I think Hover would fall into the Fabio category there. But yeah, I think we can, hold on to Neto. I'm looking right now at financials, and he's really affordable considering the situation. So I don't think you still got 2 more years after this where you can sell him. So why not hold on to him, see him, keep him healthy, get him some backup. Like, love to see Chiquinho be the guy behind him, to spell him and allow Pedro to stay healthy all season. And I think this team could make a run and be what Gary O'Neill wants.
I was going to throw this out there. A great way to save us at least 2 points of last minute losses. Chris Wood is out of contract. We can't lose on some shitty team if we have Chris Wood on the bench.
Yeah. I'm going to throw out another name that I think would be a best case to lose, and that's Sarabia. And the reason I say that is he makes the most on wages of people that aren't out on loan. Like, I think Guedes is right up there too, but Sarabia makes $90,000 a week. And that money can be used a lot more. I say sell him for a couple million to send him back to Spain, where he'd be happy, and use those wages elsewhere. Maybe giving Mario Lemina and João Gomez contract extensions. That would be another thing that I think would make it a good so.
All right, let's move on to a question from Todd DeWitt, who we had the pleasure of, or I had the pleasure of finally meeting in person. Many of you have already met him, and he was with Dave and I and many other people at McHale's in New York City over the weekend. Anyway, he asks, which player would get lost in the Mall of America? Josh,
Kilman?
I feel like this is
I think it's either Kilman or Aitnery. That's who I'm going with.
The list begins and ends with Aitnery.
Yeah.
He's always got his headphones on. He's going to be looking at his phone. He's going to be walking around and find himself in a place that he's like, am I still in a mall?
But I could also see Kilman hasn't been to anything anywhere remotely like Mall of America anywhere. And so he would just be like, start having a panic attack. Adam?
I think Max would be fine if Craig Dawson's there to show him around. But if Craig Dawson's not there, he's lost for sure.
Ryan?
I agree Aitnery would probably be number one, but I think you're discounting Jose Sa getting distracted by something really shiny or wanting to ride the indoor roller coaster and all of a sudden being like riding it 11 times and be like, wait, where is everybody?
I can totally see that. David?
I'm going to be harsh here and say Fabio Silva would probably get locked in the lifts and then when he finally got out, he'd fall down the stairs.
No, man, he'd be chasing the skirts is what he'd be doing. Adam?
I could also see Sarabia getting left behind because he wasn't tall enough to ride the roller coaster and everybody left without him.
When you were talking about Jose or Brian, when you were talking about Jose Sa on there, all I could think about was from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure when they're all in the mall and they're all getting into trouble just because they're completely overwhelmed. I could see Napoleon and Jose Sa on the roller coaster together, like.
Oh my God, we need a Jose Sa and Huang montage in a giant mall of them just getting into 80s style hijinks in a mall, changing clothes and shopping or going around, go hand in hand with a million bags and stuff.
Well,
with the
Huang
80s
fancies
music.
himself a little bit of a male model. I could see Jose Sa just carrying all of his bags, basically. I've not been to the Mall of America, but I'm on the 8 Nori train on this one.
Shocker.
Thank you for that question and bringing some light to a very serious season-ending summer discussion. Todd, it was a pleasure to meet you and Michelle over the weekend. Okay, Bailey OJ asks us, where would we have realistically finished if Mickey Beale hadn't bottled it? That's a name I haven't heard in a while. What do you think, Paul?
I'm totally sure that he's talking about the championship, because if he'd have got that job that squarely, where would it have been?
Oh,
And
yeah.
if he'd have got the job and if he was still there, which I highly doubt, we'd probably be flirting with relegation from the championship. So just hearing his name sent shivers down my spine, and hearing his whiny voice, just horrible.
Does Beal get the same summer that Lopetegui gets, or January that Lopetegui got, or is it totally different? Because I think we've seen our squad is a good squad. Like, even if you bring in the Cunhas and you bring in Mario Lemina and Dawson and everybody we brought in that January, I think we still survive last season. I don't know.
I don't think we do get those guys, because I think, especially like with Lamina, Lopetegui was a selling point to them at that time. Beal, I don't know. They would have been like, who the hell is this guy?
Well, I think what's funny about that is that, there were people talking, and we talked about this actually at the meetup, Dave. There were people talking about Lopetegui rating Wolves for some of their players. But am I crazy to think that there's no way that, like, after everything he said publicly, any of those players would rather play for him than Gary O'Neill, regardless of, like, if he made Matheus Cunha his priority? Like, there's got to be some bad blood there, right, Danny? I mean, like, he literally said that they're not good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Bane one would be Matheus Cunha, who he really wanted in. And let me tell you, they're not affording Matheus Cunha, who's still got many years. And for what we paid for him, it ain't happening. And back to the McBeal thing, it's just it sort of echoes Gary's statement at the end of the Liverpool game that you want people who want to be there. And that's definitely not the case with McBeal, regardless of what talents he has as a manager, which I'm sure exists, whether I've seen it or not. It's just like, it's clear that it was a career move for him, and he felt that it wasn't right for his career, and that's why he chose otherwise. But if he had chosen to coach Wolves, it would have been purely for a career move and not because he wanted to be there or he gave a damn.
Chris?
Yeah, I think he would have been out of the job earlier in the year. I don't think he would have made it through the January transfer window. I did want to say this about, considering we keep talking about Lopetegui, I heard Jackie Oatley today on the Wolves Report say that, the difference between Gary O'Neill and Lopetegui is the fact that Lopetegui would just set the lineup and pretty much, try to coach them, but it's more along the lines of Gary O'Neill is so hands-on with these guys that we saw actual improvements in the players, like a Ryan Etnori and some of these other guys this season that Lopetegui didn't even have time for. So I think we're very fortunate just having Gary O'Neill, not to take us away from the whole Beal conversation, but I just thought it was a pretty fascinating point.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, same. I would say most of Lopetegui's career actions would suggest he's not one to necessarily take accountability for things when they go bad, which is why it's mystifying that he continues to have a decent enough reputation to get decent jobs.
It's the cheat.
Don't let Guillaume find out. He'll subtweet you in an instant.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
Yeah, what's worse, Guillaume or Michael Beale's fake Twitter account where he was talking about why he made those certain decisions? Like, which?
Oh my
if it was our club, what would you?
I forgot about that.
I did too. That's awesome. Yeah.
Talking of crazy social media, did you see Owen Otasori has turned into some like drop shipping social influencer and hasn't kicked a soccer ball in 2 years? That was crazy.
He said Premier League football completed it. He completed it. Can't argue with that.
Best false nine we ever had.
And finally, Wolfrunian Dan Wilkes asks on Twitter, if the famous orange battered chips in Wolverhampton started raining down, would you be eating them? And which Wolves player is going to join in? As many of you may know, but maybe some of our listeners don't, orange chips, they're a Black Country delicacy, deep fried with a batter of paprika and turmeric spices. And I don't know what else is in it, but I'm assuming he means raining down means they touch the floor. Are you eating them?
No,
No,
5 second
not
rule.
raining down means you're underneath and you've got your mouth
You just
open.
got your mouth
so
open.
Like the shape of it's really hard to catch. I mean, I guess you're going to catch some if it's pouring.
Yeah.
I
So,
smell a game for Baltimore.
can you catch a crab cake in your mouth?
Yeah. Can we? Has anybody? I actually, this is a serious. This is my no stupid question. At any Wolves meetups or anything that you do at your home, has anyone tried to make orange chips at home? I feel like that's like we need to throw a party and do that.
You're talking like big, like industrial sized fryers. It's the whole the whole coming together. I don't think you could pull it off at home even if you tried. It needs the whole restaurant fast food vibe to bring. It's like trying to replicate a Big Mac.
Yeah, fair enough. Dave?
Yeah. Hey, Paul, you and I were from very similar locations, right? You were Sedgley and Etishall Park, the other side of Sedgley Beacon. I honestly, and I've asked my brother this, I don't remember orange chips. Now, I've been here since 1990, so maybe they became a thing a little bit later, but I don't know. Maybe there was a part of my Black Country upbringing that's sorely missing.
I definitely do. Like Sedgley, we're talking a tiny village in American terms, but when I was growing up, 80s and 90s, it had about like 4 or 5 fish and chip shops within a mile's radius. It's that like 5 or 6 shops dotted around the area. But I distinctly remember orange chips. You could get them from Middleton's in Sedgley.
We used to go up to Goldthorne Hill, I think, by the Fighting Cocks. I don't remember orange chips though.
The Fighting Cocks.
So deprived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More Wolverhampton travel guide in a further episode. So the second half of that question, which of the current Wolves squad is most likely to partake in some orange chips?
Aitnery.
Yeah, I was immediately thinking the French players, some pommes frites. How different can it be? Plus, we saw in one of those videos that Lamina can handle heat, even though as an American, I'm very skeptical that there's any heat there. But that obviously rules out Max Kilman. We know that if there's any heat to be had, he's probably not having it.
I reckon that Lamina could put plenty of calories away just in terms of fuel. So I think he'll be at the front.
Adam?
I was actually going to say Max Kilman because I know he eats like a little kid and doesn't eat
That's
vegetables.
true.
But
That's
potato
true.
doesn't really count as a
I
vegetable,
guarantee
so.
you, he never wanted what his mom made to eat, and he always wanted pizza or McDonald's chicken nuggets, one of the two.
I was so disappointed watching that video, him turning down all this like amazing looking food, being like, "Oh, I'm afraid to eat it." I don't know.
He was afraid to have cabbage. You're telling me that his Ukrainian family wasn't eating cabbage? I'm sorry. This doesn't pass the smell test to me.
It's passive Max even at the dining room table.
I mean, could he eat more than cabbage when he was playing futsal? Chris?
I don't know. I was going to go with Enzo Gonzalez. We've rarely seen him this year, but since he is Paraguayan, a lot of fried food in South America.
Yeah,
he's a teenager, short guy, so that means he's at the lower end. He can catch.
I was going to say, what does short guy have to do with it?
I'm short.
I know. You're just trying to
tactical move there. But yes, he can. I just think the teenager in him, given his background, he'd put the most away. Besides, he's got more time than everybody else. He isn't playing that often.
That's true. Plenty of time to practice. My nomination after this, I actually just thought of this after watching that 5-second rule video, would be Matheus Cunha. If we're talking catching it out of the sky, he clearly has a very significant mouth, like a jaw range, I guess you would call it, as he fits 17 or 18 or whatever it was, 21 cheese balls in his mouth. So that's got to be good for something if we're talking about just trying to catch him and pluck him out of the sky. And he also seems like I guarantee you that guy has an unreal metabolism. Like he'll eat anything he wants, and he's always going to look that way. So
big mouths and fighting cocks. It is a whole lot of Wolves episode now.
That's
what
right.
can't Cunha do? That's the real question. I feel like Cunha can do anything. He's the greatest.
Yeah, get a call when he's fouled from a ref. I don't know. And that I believe is the end of our No Stupid Questions for today's show. Of course, brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines, showcasing 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. Go to esfuerzowines.com. Use the promo code Wolves to get a discount on your wine order.
All right, guys, it is time for the reveal of the final standings of the predictions. Danny, I didn't get yours before Liverpool, but guess what? It didn't matter.
I didn't
Even
need
without that 25 points for the win. Alex in the guest spot tied with 24. I had 23. And Paul, well, this is back-to-back relegations. Like, you're in League One at this point.
Definitely Mickey Beale as far as prediction league goes.
You know,
no one look into my financials.
Yeah. We do say this, but at the same time, going back to the preseason predictions when it was myself, Paul, Alex, and Chris. Paul, do you remember who you picked for top scorer?
I actually found them. I'd had them saved as a note, and I stumbled upon them today. So I got Cunha as top scorer.
With I thought 12 goals.
Yeah, I thought it'd be penalty taker. So
yeah, with 12 goals. Let's see. This is all the preseason one. Now keep in mind we did midseason, but preseason, Paul and Alex had Matheus as player of the season. No. I had Fabio with 12 goals too. Ugh. I mean, not Matheus Cunha, Matheus Nunes.
He was just covering his bases. You just say the first name.
Yeah. And then but myself and Chris had João Gomez. I think you can make an argument, although probably not player of the year. Goal of the season. Paul, you had Sarabia, and I really feel like you could say that goal against Chelsea is the one, right?
Well, the Spurs one won it for the official.
Yeah, that's why I bet the Spurs one, yeah.
Men's goal of the season. So I'm claiming that for definite.
Yeah.
No
so I'll
doubt.
give you that. League Cup finish. Yeah, no. I got that. I had third round getting knocked out. FA Cup finish. I finished just short. I had them in the semis. Surprise of the season. This is always fun. Surprise of the season in preseason was me saying Alex Scott would sign by the end of the summer window. Did not happen. Chris, you said that Wolves would make Euros if Lopetegui stayed.
We'll never know.
What a dumbass.
Paul said Kilman would get selected by England at some point.
Maybe. I doubt it.
Still time.
There's an inflated squad for the Euros, so I might go around doing a Tanya Harding and kneecapping a few starting centre backs.
I don't think anybody would complain if you took out Mings and Harry Maguire. And then, Alex, you said new owners as your surprise of the season. Minority or majority. Hasn't happened yet. As far as mid-season guys, Alex took Cunha with 16. Everybody else took Hwang. Paul had 15 goals. I had 17. Danny had 18. He might have hit that if he hadn't gotten hurt. But we were all right. They tied with 12 goals. So there you go. Player of the season. Paul, myself, and Danny said Mario Lemina. Alex said Cunha. It could go either way. Real quick, I'm going to go through you guys one by one, and you tell me player of the season. Chris.
Mario Lemina.
Okay. Brian.
Lamina.
Adam.
Cunha all day. No Cunha, no party.
Ryan.
Lamina.
Dave.
Tough one, but Lamina.
Okay. Danny.
I really want to go with Adam, but I'm going to say Lamina.
Okay. Alex.
I mean, I got to go with who I said before. I'm going with Adam. I'm going Cunha.
Okay. Paul.
Cunha, because of the Hawthorns.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it.
I had to
Yeah.
think about it a lot, and I still picked Lamina. I think if Cunha, a lot of it is Cunha didn't have a good first 10 games of the season too. He really came on. So according to that poll, that informal poll, Lamina is the whole lot of Wolves player of the year. Does that mean we need to figure out a way to get him a cowboy hat in Baltimore?
So
Okay.
need some type of presentation.
That's
Okay.
part of my reasoning because I want to see him in a cowboy hat.
I will work on this. I will work on this. Other show
would
of
wear the
hands.
hell
Should
out
I
of a
wear a
cowboy hat.
cowboy hat? Should I wear my cowboy hat in Baltimore? Show of hands.
I mean, you gotta.
Okay, damn it. I was hoping you guys would say no, but all right. Okay.
Then why
FA
would you
Cup.
ask?
Leonard Skinner shirt.
Huh?
As long as I can wear a Leonard Skinner shirt in Jacksonville.
There you go. There you go. That's perfect.
No one's stopping you except for a sense of common decency.
Hey, Leonard Skinner has one of the greatest songs of all time. FA Cup finish. Paul, you said they'd make it to the final. Myself and Alex said semifinals. Danny was the only one who was right by saying the quarterfinals. So I still think they would have made the semis if they hadn't got hurt, though. But whatever. Final league positioning. Paul said 8th. I said 9th. Danny said 9th. Alex said 10th. So Alex, you were the closest. We were all feeling good in January. I noticed that. And then the surprise of the season, Paul, you said that O'Neal would be in the manager of the year discussion, which then you started calling him Lodge last week. So I don't know where you fall on this. I said new ownership. Again, I think me and Alex are just kind of sitting waiting. I feel like something's going to happen soon. Alex, you may have been the most wrong here. You said Wolves would make an impact January signing.
Yeah.
I don't think Noah Lamina was
Anyway.
Fletcher was great for the under-21, so I gotta give it to him.
Take out the word impact and you're still wrong.
Yeah. But Danny bailed you out, Alex, because Danny predicted that Wolves would make Europa.
Wow. If only.
Here's what's interesting. You predicted them to make the Europa, but you had them finishing 9th in the Premier
Just
League.
covering my bases. Got to get one of them right. And turns
Well,
out
no, you got
neither.
neither right. So you need to have relegation in there somewhere. Then you still would have been wrong. And that was it for the predictions, guys. We sucked. It's up, Paul. I give Paul big kudos for preseason Cunha with 12 goals. Good job.
That's got to be worth some extra points in the prediction league.
Yeah, I mean, he still is
He's still last.
Yeah.
But...
He's still last. Fine, I'll give him what? Paul, I will give you 5 points for that, and you still finished in last place.
Okay, as long as you can relegate Notts Forest, I'll take it.
Moral victories.
And that is it for the end of our 4th season. Can you believe? On to the 5th next season, which is crazy. But thank you to Alex producing, Danny on the socials, every one of our guests like tonight and throughout the season who've given up their time to join us and contribute. Most importantly, you, the listener, if you've been with us from the start or you've just discovered Wolves and this podcast, thank you. We look forward to meeting as many of you as possible this summer. I'm sure there'll be some related content during the close season. But in the meantime, everybody, enjoy the summer and up the mighty Wolves.
can get exposure for your business like Esfuerzo Wines have enjoyed throughout this year. Just email hello@wholelotofwolves.com for both segment and main show sponsor opportunities for the upcoming 5th season.